Wake that up.
LA's #1 hip-hop morning show is Nick Cannon Mornings on Power 106.
Nick Cannon Radio. Oh, man, it is time for up close and personal conversations. And you know what? I say this quite often when I say I only have up close and personal conversations with people that I admire, respect, and look up to. But I say this with complete sincerity this time around because this gentleman we are speaking to is a true thespian and someone that I've admired his work, and then even having the opportunity to meet him in person is just a beautiful spirit, and has a new film out that I'm a fan of because everybody knows I'm a huge Spike Lee fan. The Five Bloods going up. Delroy Lindo is an opportunity to speak with greatness, man. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So, man, where do I begin? Well, let's start with the film. I've had an opportunity to check it out, and your performance is the best performance I've seen this year. and I have to say that. But you always shine. Malcolm X is one of my favorite films, in my opinion, the greatest film ever made, and that's just because people know
one of my favorites also. Absolutely.
Yeah, and your character as West Indian Archie, like that just from how we see you at the beginning to where we see your character go, man, that growth, that journey, even in a character that necessarily wasn't the focal point, because we all know Malcolm X was the focal point, but even to see his journey, and then, you know, as someone who actually had the opportunity to read the book before I saw the film and afterwards, just to know how detailed and, you know, the substance that Alex Haley gave of West Indian Archie through Malcolm's eyes, and then to see what you did with that. I don't know, like, people, like, man, you should be commended and praised on how you were able to bring that across, because there was a lot even in the book. West Indian Archie kind of, like, it was a quick scene in the movie of, you know, him kind of going and looking for Malcolm, but in the book, like, he was on Malcolm's head for quite some time, and was even one of the real reasons where Malcolm actually had to come and get rescued up out of Harlem. So to be able to know that there was so much more context in that character, you felt that in that. So that was probably one of the, as a young man, I saw your performances, and then was able to, I mean, everything from, you know, my goodness, from Clockers to Romeo Must Die, to all of those things. You're always such a strong presence. And now to see the Five Bloods and another character to actually witness growth and a journey. We meet him at one space, and he ends up in a completely different space. I don't want to give it away for anyone who hasn't seen the film, but I say all of this to say, when going into a role, how do you prepare, and is it like, do you only choose roles where you can say it has to have some meat to it? I can't just have a surface level character.
Okay, right. So look, before I answer that, and I will answer your question, I just want to say kudos. Thank you for the kudos around Malcolm X. I think it's a really underrated film. I always have. It's one of my favorite films. And I'm really proud of the work that I did on West Indian Archie. And it's interesting, you referenced how West Indian Archie speaks about, how Alex Haley speaks about West Indian Archie in the book. And there's a component there. There's one thing I want to mention, because I think it applies to many of us in life. And that is when West Indian Archie probably had a photographic memory,
right?
Which is what enabled him never to write anything down.
Yeah.
For all of you who have not read the book, and in particular young people in particular, read the book, because West Indian Archie is an example of a man who possessed extraordinary talent and was never able to use it in the way that he might have, because given that he had what I think of as a photographic memory, and I think it's been a while since I read the book, but I think Alex Haley references that he could have been there were so many other things he could have
Yeah,
done,
a
just in terms of
scientist, a
taking advantage.
mathematician, like all of those things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
taking advantage of his talent. So I don't know. It speaks to all of us in terms of, and particularly young people,
indeed.
at this time in the world
Yes.
who are beset with so many challenges. And we know, particularly in terms of our children, young kids of color,
Yes.
there is an educational gap in this country.
Yes.
Young kids who have monumental talents who may or may not get to express and exploit those talents.
Right.
So when you spoke about West Indian Archie, I was just moved to say that just perhaps as a way of giving some inspiration to young people in particular,
Indeed.
either following their dreams, utilizing their talents, and finding ways to utilize their talents, because we have, as a people, so many young people who are incredibly talented and may not get the opportunity to express those talents.
Right.
So you referencing Alex Haley and West Indian Archie just moved me to say that.
Nah, it's powerful. I needed that, and I feel like our audience needs that in this moment as well. Just because, I mean, not only was the talent, he was a street guy and well respected,
Right.
and even when we think about the code of the streets, or even what it means to be a black man in America, he felt like he was standing on his code of being, one, not only a man of his word and never messing up on the numbers, but also standing firm on his talent and his gift of having a photographic memory, and in dealing and kind of being an antagonist to Malcolm X at the time. He learned quite a bit from his experience for him to become the Malcolm X that we know now. So, and that's even see that heartfelt message towards the end, where Malcolm went back as Minister Malcolm and had that opportunity. And we didn't see, West Indian Archie wasn't in the best state at the time, but you felt his passion. It came through you when he was sitting there.
The fact that Malcolm came and reconnected with, as Minister Malcolm, the fact that he sought out West Indian Archie after all those years, and particularly given the fact that they had become, their relationship at the end in the earlier years had become antagonistic.
Right.
The fact that Malcolm sought him out, for me, is indicative of the bond that had been created all those years earlier, and his recognition of West Indian Archie's worth.
Right.
So I guess before we start speaking about the Five Bloods, the issue or the component of worth, the worth that we all have, right. And I'm speaking particularly to young people, connecting with their worth.
Yes.
And in a world that does not always value their worth, and put another way, undervalues their worth, to say something that is a little bit of a cliche, but I hope people understand what I'm saying. It's critical to follow your dreams.
Indeed.
It's critical. It's critical. If you have a talent that you believe in, and even though you may be challenged, you may be in circumstances that do not allow you to express or to develop your gift, to develop your worth. I'm here to tell you, particularly now in America, particularly now across the globe, the fact that we have the kinds of unrest that we have, based on the fact that the status quo does not value us as human beings. That's what's caused the situation that we're in here in this country now and across the globe. And I'm here to say that whatever your talent may be and your worth, do whatever you can, to continue believing in yourself when everybody else is saying no. It's critical that you say yes to yourself. I know it's easier said than done, but it's critical that you maintain a belief in yourself, because the worth and the talent that a lot of our young people in particular have, that sometimes does not get the opportunity to be expressed or developed, it is there, and it is critical for you critical for the future of the human race.
Right.
That you do everything you can to invest in yourselves and invest in your talents.
Powerfully
And
said.
that has to do with the concept of worth.
Yes.
All right, now I will answer your question, brother, about the five blood. I'll say one other thing. I'm sorry.
No, then take your time. You dropping gems right now. This is what this whole platform is for.
The fact that art and following my dream as a young person is something that literally saved my life. And the fact that I'm sitting here with you right now as a result of having had the opportunity to pursue my ambition, which was to become an actor when I grew up.
Right.
And the outgrowth of that is that I've been fortunate and I've had a good career. And that's brought me to this moment. But in terms of young people, I would say never, ever, ever. You have worth. And even in the context where your worth is being undervalued or rejected, it is incumbent on all of us, but particularly our young people of color, to hold on to your worth and your sense of yourself and your ambition to pursue your dreams no matter what. We need you.
Indeed.
The world needs you for the betterment of all of us on this planet.
Say that.
Okay,
Yeah,
so now
definitely knowing your value, you won't need their their validation. Yeah.
Knowing your value, that's right, and doing everything you can to know your value, to increase your value, to believe in your value, and to nurture your value.
Yes.
Okay, man, I rambled, but now I will answer your question in terms of the film that I'm immensely proud of, and specifically my contribution to the film. And you asked me, I think, about creating a character. Was that your question?
Yeah, we were talking because I was showing the similarities and the journey of like a West Indian Archie to this current character, where it's just so much growth in such a short amount of time of a film. But to me that's true greatness when it comes to acting, is when you can see a character start one way and end up another, and you believe in and follow that journey. And you exemplified that, brilliant.
So thank you. So look, just briefly going back to Malcolm X, that final scene between Malcolm and myself and West Indian Archie was the capper. It completed the journey.
Right.
Even though I was only in a 3-hour film, I was probably in that film for, 10 or 15 minutes. Right. But as you said, there was a journey that the audience could follow. And the fact that it ended in that final scene put the cap on West Indian Archie's journey and gave the audience the opportunity to follow him. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Fast forward now, and Spike gave me that opportunity, right, by casting me in the film.
Right.
Fast forward 25 plus years, he has also now presented me with another opportunity, a gem of an opportunity, a gift. First of all, this film, The Five Bloods, which revisits the Vietnam experience through the lens of the experience of these five brothers,
right?
Which in and of itself is unusual. It does not happen frequently that we get to see 5 Black men front and center, being able to share their experiences with an audience. So now Spike has given me 25 years after Clockers, which is also another underrated film.
Powerful film.
In my opinion. He's given me another opportunity, a gift. How did I create the character? I think that was your question.
Yes, sir.
All right. I was 16 years old in 1968, and I was also in Europe. So my understanding, quote unquote, of the Vietnam conflict, the American War, as Vietnamese people refer to it as the American War. My understanding of the war was very general. And I set about educating myself much more specifically in service of this film and in service of wanting to create this character. So what I did, the first thing I did was I spoke with two cousins of mine who are vets. They were both in the Nam. They both struggled with PTSD. One of my cousins much more pronouncedly than the other. And these two of my cousins came to my place. I was on the East Coast working. They came up to my place and we just sat and talked, and they shared their experiences with me about Nam in general, but also specifically about their struggles with PTSD. I made notes. I watched them. I observed them as they were speaking, and I recorded everything that they were saying to me. Then one of my cousins gave me a box full of photographs that he just gifted me. He said, "Take these, man. Just if you can use these, if these are helpful, use them." And they were It was a box full of photographs that he had taken during his tour of Nam, just reflecting his experience in Nam. Then I spoke with additional vets. I think 5 or 6, I was introduced to 5 or 6 additional vets, all of whom spoke with me about their experiences in Nam. Lastly, I spoke with a retired major, an African-American woman, a sister who had retired as a major, who had been in Iraq. She was an Iraq vet. And she spoke with me at great length and in detail about her struggles with PTSD. So I had that as a foundation. I then went back and read a book called Bloods, which is a verbatim account of African-American bloods, of brothers and their experiences in Nam. I reread that book. I had read it in the 70s. I went back and reread that book. Then various documentaries. There's a documentary called The Anderson Platoon, which is about a platoon the platoon leader was a brother, and that was very rare to have an African-American platoon leader back in the late 60s during that conflict. I looked at other additional documentaries, and I looked at additional literature. So what I did was immerse myself in books, films, documentary films, in order to educate myself about that conflict. And that all of those things served as my foundation as I started the journey of creating this character.
Wow, powerful, man. And to see, again, and just hats off to you and Spike again. It was crafted so well. But I just want to talk Spike just for a second, because Spike is a in my opinion, one of the greatest filmmakers ever. But he's an acquired taste to many. And, as someone who had the privilege of starring in a film that Kevin Wilmot, who wrote The Five Bloods as well, wrote with Spike, Chirac, I found an even greater experience with actually working with Spike than other filmmakers that I've had the opportunity to work with, where it's a committee project. But what I found with working with Spike is he has a very distinct and direct vision that I feel like comes across in all of his work, and it's so magnificent. From Crooklyn, which you starred in and was an amazing film. Like you said, Clockers was amazing, and Malcolm X, to even what we see here, Chirac, what he did, with Lysistrata. Spike made some interesting choices in this film, and I feel like a lot of it, even like the relationship with your son and how that was presented, and the camera angles and all so many different things. But even it took me a while. I actually had to go back and almost rewatch the film again to pick up on some other nuances with how he chose to display the war in the flashback scenes, which then you really were able to tap into the PTSD that you personally were experiencing. Was that something that you and Spike discussed, or did he just present it like, this is who? Because I know sometimes people think Spike is so deep, and he be like, nah, just do that shit how you want to do it. But his vision is so direct that he trusts his actors. But then at the same time, for your performance and his vision as a filmmaker to come together, it was beautifully done this way. It made me like, wow, they crafted that amazingly.
So look, you're touching on so many things, man. Spike is extremely prepared.
Yes.
As you say, he's very clear about what he wants to do and how he wants to do it in terms of his storytelling. And you also touched on the trust that he places in his actors.
Yeah.
And I've experienced all of that.
Yeah.
On this film, which is to say, I've certainly experienced the trust that he's entrusted me, that with a belief that I can serve his story in the way it needs to be served. We spoke about the film, but not a lot. A lot of it was there on the page. When he sent me the script and I read it, it was clear what it was. I did not know he was going to experiment with aspect ratios, right? That when we went back to Vietnam, the lens.
4:3. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Right. That's right. But brilliant. If I didn't know that, he didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
He didn't discuss it with any of the actors, as far as I know. But it's brilliant because what it does is it immediately transports you back into that time.
Yes.
And it increases the audience's level of believability.
Yes.
And it's brilliant. So to your question, there was some things that we discussed, but we did not do a lot of discussing because the trust is reciprocal. I trust him, he trusts me. So I'm clear that when I'm on a Spike Lee film, I'm going to trust, and I've had this experience in all 4 of the films now that I've worked with Spike on. I trust what he is about the business of doing. I trust the story he is telling and how he wants to tell it. He trusts that I can participate in that journey and serve the story and serve the particular scene in the way that he wants it to happen. Right. Now, if there ever is an instance in which I'm doing something that's not quite right or not quite serving the story, he will speak on it. He'll speak to me. But generally, we haven't had instances where what I have contributed to the process, he's had a problem with. I can't remember. If you speak with Spike, ask Spike. But right now, as I'm sitting here, I cannot recall an instance where I have done something in a scene where he has said, no, man, that's wrong.
Yeah.
What I will say is we've certainly had disagreements over interpreting certain aspects of the material, and we had disagreements on the Five Bloods. There were a couple of very specific disagreements, but the important thing is the trust and the respect, the mutual trust and the mutual respect allowed us to get past those obstacles in order to make the film that needed to be made.
Yeah, I'd have to say personally, and then again, I went into this as a fan beforehand, but and working with Spike, he is definitely the best filmmaker I have ever worked with. For like just with his personality, like he has like the most infectious laugh of all time, brings great spirit, and if you ever work on a film, especially an intense film, your leader, your director has to be someone who knows how to work well with people. And like I said, he and I would have disagreements and stuff, even just the tone of Chirac, the film that I did with him, where you were taking some gang violence in the black community and you were making a sex musical damn near is what people described it as. It was polarizing for many. So even being in the trenches, and I can remember a scene specifically for us, it was towards the end of the film. And what Spike made the choice to have real mothers who had lost children to senseless gun violence in Chicago as the backdrop, as I was, pretty much kind of my character was breaking down to Jennifer Hudson, who you learn within the film is I accidentally murdered her daughter. So in this moment, it's such, not only is the scene intense, but Spike heightened it by putting real mothers in my eye line who had really lost their children. It wasn't anything acting. And behind me were another 200 actors who were, all dressed in white, and it was a very, how do I say, theatrical setup. And I will never forget this moment because I'm standing there pretty much surrounded by a couple of hundred people. And when you're in there, when you're on set, people are being people, you know what I mean? So people are talking, you might hear laughter over there. You might, these mothers are intense and never been on a movie set before. So they're kind of, dealing with just being in a situation where holding pictures of their slain children in their hands in this awkward moment. And I'm trying to connect with Jennifer, who's, amazing actress, amazing performer. She's doing her, and we're trying to work. And I remember Spike walking into the center of that move, and from being jovial Spike probably 30 seconds before to walking and watching him turn into one of the most demanding and commanding directors I have ever seen, where he silenced that room instantly. He's like, I need you to respect my actor because he is delivering something right now that is damn near impossible. And when I say he set the tone, because obviously I had to cry and do a lot of things in that moment, when he set the tone in that moment, and if you ever see that last scene in Chirac, you'll see the intensity of it. But that's where my respect level for him shot to a whole nother level, to where, because as someone who's made films and stuff before and even directed, I know how you can get, even as a director, you can get sidetracked on wanting your shot to be right, or speaking to your DP about this. And he was so in tune with me in that moment, in the midst of hundreds of people. I was like, that's why he's Spike Lee. That's why, like, not only does he have the vision of his story that he wants to tell, but he has a vision of a filmmaker and how to conduct. So, I mean, again, like I said, I have so many stories of he and I, but just to add to your point of like someone who's not is prepared, but just knows what he wants and knows how to really put it out there, and that's why we have a great film.
And he's not afraid of saying what he feels needs to be said in a given moment, and he's not afraid of commanding or demanding what he wants. Now, I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago, that you referenced Spike being an acquired taste. And we both know that Spike has, rubbed people the wrong way over the years. But what I would say is it is an example of a craftsperson. What's the word? It's an example of a craftsperson pursuing his craft as he sees it. And, there are a lot of people who would be considered, great artists whose people skills were questionable, not necessarily the nicest people, but they're great artists. Now, I'm not saying that being a great artist gives you the right to be disrespectful to people. I'm not saying any of that. But what I am saying is when you speak about that, you speak about that anecdote of Spike walking into the middle of the room when you needed to do a scene and shutting the room down from the standpoint of, let's give this actor his respects right now. Let's organize. I need this. I am demanding that this moment be organized in such a way so that Nick Cannon, or the character you were playing, can do his work. Right. And you're right. Some people may, I don't know. Obviously, I was not there. But that's an example of a person pursuing a piece of work in the way that he feels it needs to be pursued. Now, from my own standpoint, my own experience with Spike, I will say that one of the most, and it sounds as if you're in a similar place, one of the most treasured gifts that I have as a result of working with Spike, that I have shared with Spike, is that in any instances where there is a disagreement, where there has been a disagreement, we can get past it. We are able to sort out, come to a place where whatever we have disagreed on, we each say our piece. Either he apologizes and I accept, or I say, look, man, X, Y, and Z. and we move on and we get the work done. And for me, that's one of the most treasured gifts that I can have with any co-worker.
Yeah.
But I want to say one thing, Nick, before we go on. I just need to also give kudos in terms of the Five Bloods to my fellow Bloods. Clark Peters, Norm Lewis, Isaiah Whitlock Jr., Jonathan Majors, and Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
I just need to say their names.
Yes.
Because they were part of this journey.
And they were phenomenal as well. All of them. Everybody.
Absolutely.
The journey of everyone had, obviously yours stands out because, of the PTSD. And I don't want to give it away to people who haven't seen the film yet that you can see on Netflix. But your relationship with your son, yours stands out so much. But the other gentleman, and I feel like Spike's probably he's worked with everyone before previously. I'm not sure about Chadwick, but I just felt like when I saw the cast, I was like, oh, that's about to be hot. Like, I got excited, you know what I mean, to see the Bloods, because I was like, oh, I see how Spike handpicked people that he admired and respected and that he liked working with.
Another of his gifts, it's another of his talents / gift, and that is the way that he casts his films. Yeah. It's said, you're a director. I haven't directed film, but I've directed in the theater. But, the casting is, 70, 80% of the job of being a director. If you cast right, if you cast the people who can get the job done partially, you're more than halfway, 70% the way to being successful in your project.
Right.
And with this, I don't think Spike had worked with Chadwick, and I don't think Spike had worked with Norm.
Okay,
before. But it didn't matter in a sense, because and when I say it didn't matter, what I mean is the bond, and this is something that was really special. The bond that we, as co-workers, as men, as Black men, as human beings on the planet, the bond that we created off screen then contributed centrally to the chemistry that we had in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And what was special about that for me was the fact that it was completely organic.
Right.
It was completely organic, man. We didn't decide that we were going to do that.
Right.
We just communed.
Right. As brothers, as Bloods.
As brothers, man. As Bloods. We just communed. And in those processes, in those various conversations that we shared, we were bonding, and we were able to then take those dynamics and utilize them in service of the work.
One thing I actually did want to say, and obviously so in this unique environment, in this new world, speaking to what you just talked about, clearly we're all quarantined. We're doing interviews through virtual processes. There's civil unrest going on right now. And I feel like even when watching this film, as much as it gives you that opportunity for escapism, it's almost like Spike is right on time when it comes to having to say something effective and potent to the world.
Amen.
And he did it in a way where it's not, and again, where he's brilliant. I don't want to make this a Spike love fest, but in it was almost serendipitous, or the universe needed. Yeah.
No, it can be a Spike love fest. You know why? Because I have no problem giving props where props are due.
Right.
None. I have no problem giving props where props are due, and props are due to the brother in this instance, because obviously there was no way in the world that he could know, that he could foresee the George Floyd situation, the Breonna Taylor situation.
And they didn't even have the Black Lives at the end. Like, so.
Listen, what he told me? I didn't know this. You know what he told me about that Black Lives moment? That was the very first scene that he filmed.
Wow.
In pre-production.
Wow.
Pre-production, right?
That's
so look, here's the thing. Here's the thing about this. I think that Spike proves to be so prescient in his choices. He proves to be ahead of the curve in a lot of instances because the work that he has produced, going all the way back to She's Gotta Have It, Joe's Bedside Barbershop, the work all the way up through, Malcolm X, Clockers, Crooklyn, Do the Right Thing. All of this work, cumulatively, Nick, Spike is always working from the center, in my opinion. He's working from the center of the Black experience.
Yes.
And feeding back to audiences some aspect or various aspects of the Black experience. So the fact that, and I don't want to give the film away either, but the fact that the film, The Five Bloods, starts with documentary footage
Yes.
from the past, which proves to be very contemporary, is an example of this man working from the center of the Black experience culturally and speaking about, referencing moments of violence that have happened in the past, moments of rejection of status quo, moments where we were, we as Black people, people of color, were standing up and saying, no, we matter.
Yes.
And having to react and respond to violence that has been visited on African descended people for over 400 years, 401 years,
Yes.
right? And he's working out of that ethos.
Yeah.
And it happens to be, the film happens to be released at a point in time where all of those things are acutely contemporary and acutely germane and pertinent to what's happening in the culture and what's happening in this country right now.
Brilliantly put. I couldn't have said it any better myself. Again, Netflix right now, The Five Bloods is the amazing piece of art that you are a part of. And I feel like this is definitely one of those Spike Lee classics, which you've been able to work and be a part of in the past as well. But job well done. I commend you in saying that. And even though we are probably the time is probably escaping us, I feel like I could talk to you for hours about so many other things. But we had what we do on the show each and every day, and I feel like you're gonna blaze through it quite easily. I give all the accolades, but then I set the table and the platform for what we call the firing squad, where they're rapid fire questions where you can enlighten, inspire, and have fun. Some of these questions are quickly philosophical, psychological, but most importantly fun. And I just want to shoot a couple at you and drop those gems on us. In the firing squad.
One second. Before you do that, let's make an agreement.
Yes.
That the next time you and I see each other, if we ever see each other in person again, we will complete the conversation that we started at the very beginning of the time that we spoke, referencing the conversation that we had at the event in Los Angeles.
Indeed. That is a bet. That is a deal. I will make it a promise because I know it's so heavy. And speaking of heavy, we always start the first one off. A lot of people, it's a psychological study that says that there truly are only two emotions, love and fear, and every other emotion stems from that. And even like Nico Machiavelli said, if you can't be loved, then you might as well be feared. When it comes to how you are known, which space do you operate from, or would you wish to be known to operate from, love or fear?
If it's those two choices, I would say love, to the extent that love is an expression of humanity, a fundamental expression of humanity, and I absolutely want to be considered for my humanity. So if I have to make a choice between the two, I would say love. I
love it. Now, if we're talking fear for a second, Delroy Lindo's greatest fear?
Not being a good father.
Ooh, powerful. We see that in the Five Bloods. We definitely, your journey with your son, like I said, I don't want to give it away, but there's some powerful stuff going there.
Also, I'm a parent of a soon-to-be 19-year-old African-American man-child. So there's a lot there.
A lot.
But that would be a fear that I'm that I'm not a good father.
Indeed. Best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Best piece of advice that I did not know was the best piece of advice when I received it back in when I was first starting my career. No matter what walk of life one is in, everybody speaks to everybody.
Mm.
Everybody speaks to everybody. So take that into account.
Right.
With regard to how you comport yourself, how you present yourself in whatever sphere you are in. Know that you never know who's watching, and everybody speaks to everybody.
I heard that. Worst piece of advice Delroy Lindo's ever received?
Worst piece of advice. You will never amount to anything.
Yep.
It was not said to me in those words, but that was the sentiment.
Right.
An underestimating of who, and as a young person, an underestimating and a rejection of my abilities to make something of myself. And I want to stress, it was not said to me in those words, but that was the sentiment.
Right. I say greatest accomplishment. Delroy Lindo's greatest accomplishment.
Being a parent.
Biggest mistake.
Not taking the advice when the person said to me, everybody talks to everybody. It didn't land as it should have.
Right, right. We lighten it up real quick. Favorite film?
Can't do it, man.
It's too many.
There are too many. There are too many.
Worst job?
The worst job I ever had. I've had a few that were bad, that were not good. But back when I was starting out, I was a telephone. It was a telephone job, and I would canvass people to purchase medical products.
Oh.
I was terrible at it, and it was not a good job because it was very coercive, and you were trying to talk people into doing something they did not want to do.
Right.
It's the worst job I ever had.
I heard that. And as we wrap up the firing squad, again, I will be remiss, but I have to speak on this, but specifically because I'm not one of those ones who like follow, gossip and things that are trending. But I just have to commend you on your strength of where few weeks ago, I ran across a video where I saw a person in media trying to tempt you. I don't really know what the discourse was. But
I'll tell you what it was.
If you could break it down, because you made me so proud as a black man, and I never seen more of a brilliant answer. And the way you handled it, I was so happy to be a black man in that moment. And it was genius. But yeah, if you could break it down how the conversation even started.
Let me break it down really quickly. Now, first of all, Nick, you know that was not real, right?
Oh,
hold up. But you're not alone. A lot of people thought it was real. And I'll tell you, that was a scene from a television show from the second season of a television show that I was doing.
Oh.
But hold up. You're not the only one who thought it was real. A lot of people thought it was real. And I had to tell them, no, that's a character that I was playing in a TV show. However, what I have come to understand, and this is important, the fact that you thought it was real, the fact that many people thought it was real, is because the sentiments being expressed in the scene are very real.
Right.
The sentiments in the scene that were being expressed having to do with the N-word and white people and their desire to use that word, that's very real. And so when people saw me articulating in the scene what I was articulating, because it landed, because we all know that those sentiments are authentic and genuine. We as Black people know those sentiments are authentic and genuine.
Yes.
It landed on people as if it were real.
Yeah, it did.
In fact, it's a scene from a television show, but it's a testament, I guess, to the scene, and a testament to me and the other actors inside the scene.
Yeah.
That the scene plays as if it were real. And I don't want to take away from you your reaction and your
Yeah, because I was gonna say, real or not, I still feel just as proud and
Amen.
in the way
Because
you handled it.
The sentiments are real, man. We know it was a brief look into what we know, some of the conversations that go on behind closed doors about us.
Yeah.
And we know it's real.
Man,
so that's what that was. That's why it landed the way it did.
Indeed, and that's all I was gonna say. Like, because in talking about the power of words, we usually end the firing squad with one question. We talk legacy, we talk purpose, and I mean, you've dropped so many gems on us already. But when it's all said and done, when looking back at it, through your career, who you are as a father, as a man, what's the one word that will best describe Delroy Lindo?
It's hard. One word. Presence. And by presence, maybe my presence as an actor. I was present for my son. I was present in the world. I try to be present in the ways that it was important for me to be present. So I would say presence.
Well, you were definitely present in this conversation. We appreciate everything that you dropped on us, all the gems. And then, of course, much continued success with the Five Bloods. You were definitely present in that, and we appreciate your presence. This has been an incredible conversation with Delroy Lindo on Nick Cannon Radio.
God bless.
God bless.
Don't forget we're going to pick that conversation up, all right?
Indeed, and hopefully we get to work together one day.
That's a bet, man. God bless you.
God bless. Take care.